Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. I had a viewer about a month or so ago ask me, maybe a couple months ago, asked me to do some videos on bed springs. So I had some ideas and this is one of them. Unfortunately, I didn't get this one videotaped. And when I drilled from one corner to another one, as you can see, I made a chunk come off. But I'm going to make it work. So what I did was just threaded a piece of thin wire through the hole into the other side. As you can see, I've kind of angled it from one side of the birdhouse to the other, and then I wired it on top of the bed spring. Now this is the type of bed spring that is larger on the top and on the bottom. With one other one during this video. Now these are some faux twigs that I'm just going to kind of wrap around, but you could use real twigs if you wanted. I just didn't want to have to go get any in the yard, and we've had some wet weather, so these are going to work just fine. And I'm going to just wire these on, and this one is a very, very simple one. You just stick something on top and wire it on, and then kind of dress it up a little bit. And then I'm going to be doing a couple of other pretty easy ones also, but then one that is a little more time consuming. Now when you get your birdhouse to this point, you can just stop if you want, or you can just keep adding more than I am. I just didn't want to add a whole lot to this one, because one thing that I'm going to have to do with this one, since the birdhouse that I have on top, I know it's a little hard to tell here, but it's not lightweight. It's a heavier birdhouse, and so I didn't want this to be top heavy and topple over. So I'm going to take an old wire insulator, telephone wire insulator, and put in the bottom of this. And if I had known when I was putting this on that I was going to do that, the first step would have been to put that on, because I had to pull a little at the coil to wrap around that insulator. So it took a little bit of work, but thankfully this was on tight enough that it didn't mess up my birdhouse. And now I'm just adding some little sprigs of faux greenery and faux flowers. And I'm wiring them on in places, and then in places I'll add some little dabs of hot glue. Now after I added the insulator in the bottom, I decided that the green didn't go well enough, so all I'm doing is dry brushing some little bits of turquoise colored paint. You can use any color of turquoise you want. I happen to be using Mermaid Tail by Dixie Belle. And I'm going to add just a little bit to the roof as well, but on either you don't need very much at all. You just want little hints of that color. Now for the next bed spring, I'm going to use this little teacup that I absolutely love the colors in it, but it didn't come with a saucer. I got this in a box of teacups and saucers, but this particular one didn't have the saucer. So I'm trying to decide here how I want this to sit in this bed spring. Now I tried this on both shapes of bed springs. So these are the two different kinds that you'll find, and turns out it didn't work on it at all, so I end up going back to the other style. And I want it to sit at an angle so that what is inside it will show well, and if it sets straight up, you're not going to see it much. So I just wire that handle to one side and just let it hang. But before I did that, I noticed that around the top of the teacup is some gold, and so I've never put gold gilding wax on these bed springs, and I didn't want full coverage because I wanted a lot of that rustic to show through. I want to see some of that rust, but I also want to see quite a bit of this gold, so I'm just kind of rubbing here and there, and so that it will go well with the teacup. Again, I'm purposely leaving some of that rust showing through in places. And because I'm using the green floral wire, I'm also using some of that gold gilding on the wire itself, and then I can wire that in place. And I took a strip of lace and tied around the handle of this, and that's where I'll add a hang tag. And then I made a hang tag for this using one layer of a napkin decoupaged over some cardstock and antiqued around the edges. I also had a corner cutter for this one. It's one that I had thrifted. But I'm going to add this little hang tag, and I took some old book page and stamped some scripture on this, and then I'm just going to add this to the lace. And then I cut a piece of floral foam to go inside this, and I cut it large enough that it wouldn't have to be glued because I had to force it in. And then I added some flowers into the top and a little foam bird, and then this one will be finished. And here I'm adding some Spanish moss to hide that foam. This is also a very simple thing you can do, is just stick a small bottle up through the bottom and put some floral in it. And this, because this bottle is very old, and I didn't even try to get it extra clean because I just really like that rustic look with this bed spring. But I am going to add something a little softer in it and combine the looks of the rustic and the kind of a dainty look, I guess. So I took some very soft colored pink lace and I'm going to tie that around the top and then add a little hang tag with a rose stamped on it. And I think that will be just a simple touch that this one needs. And I also took some antiquing wax antique oxide and rubbed some of that on the lace to give it more of an aged look. Now this next one is about as simple as it gets. I've just wired a pre-made bird's nest. I ordered these already made. I just am not crazy about how bright the eggs are on this. So I'm going to take some brown wax and white wax and go over it. I first went over them with white wax to tone it down, and then I decided that I wanted them to look a little bit more rustic, so I added some, not brown wax, but Van Dyke brown glaze over the top of that. This is also something very simple that you can do with these, and these are the taller Bed Springs with the narrow top, and I just put one of the clear candlesticks, and you can get these at the Dollar Tree, up through it, and it just kind of has that mixture of rustic and elegant, and I just think it's a real pretty look. Now this one takes more Bed Springs. I think I used 11 Bed Springs on this one, and I also used the one, and I think you need to use the one that's bigger on the top and the bottom. And but this is going to be a little time consuming, and it's really, to be honest, not something that I think that you could really make any money on selling, because you're going to have more time in it than it's worth probably. But I am selling mine. I don't think I can ask more than $45 for it. But I am going to try to sell that because I don't really have a place to put it. But I wanted to show you guys how to make these. So what I'm doing is I'm wiring them together on the top and the bottom until I get enough of them wired together. And again, I think it took about 11 or 12 of these. And then I wired them together at the end to make a circle. And then because I needed it to have some form, I needed it to hold its shape rather, then I cut some pieces of cardboard and glued to the backs, and I'll show you how I did that, but I added some cardboard pieces to the back. Now you could also cut out a circle with that, but my first plan was to keep this. and then I just couldn't figure out where I wanted to put it. But I can always go back and cover the back with either some craft paper or I'll probably go back over the back and cover it with some burlap fabric. But I'm wiring these together, and then again, after I get these all wired together, then I'm going to glue that cardboard on the back. And I just cut some little roundish shapes so that it didn't show from the front. And then I got one of those cocoa liners, plant liners from the Dollar Tree, and just pulled it apart. Now, at first try, it's a little bit hard to pull apart, but once you get that first piece off, it pulls apart pretty easily. And I'm first going down on the back there and making sure that I get all that cardboard covered well. And then I'll go back through and glue some fluffier pieces around the top so that I'll have a good base for the floral that I'll be adding. And now I'm just stuffing some down in the top. Every now and then I add a little bit of glue, but for the most part I didn't have to glue a lot of this because those bed springs hold it in well. And then once I got enough of this in and I was happy with the look, I'm going to add this little bird's nest. And it's just like the one I used on the previous project. But I'm not going to tone these eggs down because I'm wanting to add some of those brighter colors into the wreath. So I'm going to add some of the brighter colored florals and then add some more of that faux vine, the darker faux vine, around the outer edge to bring some of this darker brown into the wreath. So I'll just keep adding these, and I just hot glue them in place.
Love this wispy look.
I don't want this to be too
earth
full
tones
because I
behind
want
the
to give
floral
it
when I'm
more of a
finished.
natural
It's
look.
made a really pretty
But I
wreath.
want to make sure that I get plenty of the contrast going on. And I just love how natural this wreath looks, but also all the contrast that it has. I think this just is a really pretty look. Now, all this bird decor made me think of something that happened at my house yesterday. My husband opened the door and in flew a bird. And this is the bird. And it kind of looks like it's playing because it goes from one fan blade to another all the way around. But I think it was just afraid. We had a really hard time getting it out. And we realized why it came in to begin with. My husband opened the front door, and I have an old mailbox there, and it had built a nest in that mailbox. It happens every year, I think. I'll put flowers in that, but there's still room in the back for them to build their nest. And we don't use that front door very much, so this is what happened, and there were some little birds there. There's still today one of those little eggs that hasn't hatched yet, and I'm worried that it's not going to. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.